especially with such a food-motivated animal, like in the wild, they'd be constantly seeking food and interacting with different food items. So I think it's really important to simulate that, to give them at least some mental stimulation that it's not just, oh, we're feeding you a tank side every day in the same way and you're getting the same food every day.
Yeah.
Mix it up a little.
And training is enrichment as well. Training counts as enrichment.
Sure. Podcasting counts as enrichment too, I think. I mean, he's clearly...
I think so. He's very into this.
Yeah.
Hey there, Podcast Aquanauts. It's your host, Casey here. At any given time, the Tennessee Aquarium is home to a little more than 13,000 animals that represent 700 species and change. That's a pretty significant showcase of life's diversity to share with the hundreds of thousands of visitors we welcome every year. But among our many, many residents, there are some species or even individual animals who become especial favorites of our guests. One of these celebrity residents is our plucky green sea turtle nicknamed Oscar for the thick green seaweed that covered his body when he was saved by fishermen following a boat strike in his youth off the coast of Florida. That same accident, as well as a previous run-in with an oceanic predator, left Oscar with significant injuries that have remained with him throughout his life. Despite a body that looks markedly different from other so-called normal sea turtles, however, Oscar adapted to his condition and was able to navigate his home with us with an inspirational level of agility. About 5 years ago, Oscar had to relocate from the aquarium proper to an off-site care facility that has since become his permanent residence. But love for this indomitable marine reptile has remained strong among our supporters despite his years out of view. In this episode of the show, we're taking the studio dive cage on the road to pay Oscar a visit, check out how he's doing, and learn about what life has been like for him in his new home. But you want to hear about Oscar, not listen to me ramble on, am I right? So let's get to it, shall we? On with the podcast.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Podcast Aquatic, the official podcast of the Tennessee Aquarium. As you can probably tell if you're watching this, we are doing our second experiment in a video form of the podcast because I wanted to take the podcast on the road. The last time it was into a cave. Very obviously, we are not in a cave right now. We are in one of our off-site facilities, and I'll let one of my guests, the guest to my left, tell us what that is in just a second. But let me introduce the panel for today's episode. So to my left, we've got Adam Johnson. Adam, you've been on the show before. You are our animal care facility lead. Thanks for coming back.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
And then next to you is Shelby Ferguson. You are a veterinary assistant too. And you were on, I think the last time was talking about just our veterinary work with our staff veterinarian, who is now our director of animal health. Is that his new title?
Director of Animal Health, yes.
Yeah, Director of Animal Health. That's Dr. Chris Keller. And then at the far end, now you can finally see him. He's been on the show so many times, but now you actually know what he looks like. Tom Demas, you are our Vice President and Chief Husbandry and Exhibits Officer. Thank you for joining us again.
Happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
All right. So, Adam, as I said, we are in a different place. Where are we, and what do we do here?
Yeah, so we're at our animal care facility, which is our offsite quarantine holding. So primarily we use it for like new animal acquisition. So they'll come out here, get used to life at the aquarium, get medications if they need to. We call that our quarantine period. And then it's usually temporary holding before they move to exhibit.
So it's kind of a way station of sorts. Things are moving in and out.
Yeah, constantly changing.
Okay. And then day to day, what do your responsibilities entail? So you are the animal care facility lead. Are there any other staff members who are out here all the time, or is it literally it's kind of just you, right?
Primarily it's me. So our other aquarist, Brenda Salgado, is out here half of her time. So she's got a gallery and she spends time out here. But primarily me. So it's basically an aquarist job. So taking care of all the animals, prepping diets, doing any tank maintenance that needs to be done. But then it also comes with the fun facility manager aspect of it, like maintaining the building, keeping it clean, organizing animal moves, that kind of thing.
It feels like so what you're seeing, if you're watching this, you're really only seeing a small portion of this building. There's actually quite a bit to it. There are a lot of different systems. If we're getting a new gallery ready to go or a gallery is leaving, a lot of those systems, it seems like, are populated. I don't know what you're at right now in terms of capacity, but I mean, it seems like a lot for one person to handle. So it's always impressive to me that you're out here kind of on your own, more or less part of the time at least, doing all this work.
Yeah, it's a fun job. We go through seasons of busyness depending on gallery openings and things like that. So it can be a lot, but then there's seasons like right now where it's a little bit more chill.
So, as I said, and as you said, there are animals who are moving in and moving out all the time here at the animal care facility, but we're actually out here to talk about an animal who doesn't leave. He is a permanent resident, and that, as you might be able to see in the background of the shot, is Oscar, who is one of our green sea turtles, but a green sea turtle that, unless you have been to the aquarium about 5 years or plus ago, you have never seen him, probably. You may have seen him on social media, but you've never actually seen him at the aquarium, though he used to live there. Who wants to tackle some of Oscar's backstory? How did we get Oscar, and what's the trajectory of him going from the aquarium to here?
Well, it's a great question, Casey. We got Oscar a really long time ago. It's 2026. I'm going to say it was right at 20 years ago, right around the time we opened Ocean Journey, shortly after it opened. And for a long time, he was able to live in our largest exhibit, the Secret Reef, with our other sea turtle. Oscar came to us. He's a boat strike victim. And in his accident, he lost flippers, and he lost part of his male anatomy. And he has matured to a male that is now recognizable by the other male sea turtle. They don't play well together once that happens. He was able to stay with us for a long time. He developed a fungal problem with his shell. He's had a few shoulder problems, which are pretty common with green sea turtles. We've brought him out here. Shelby, who's going to talk in a minute, has done a wonderful job caring for him and getting him to be in great condition. We're trying to wrestle with how to get him back on exhibit. As folks know, our other sea turtle, Stewie, is a picture of health, but is unreleasable. So,
and why is that? Before we move on,
he came to us as a genetic lost soul. He was turned in, and they didn't know where he came from, and he was not permitted to be re-released without knowing where he came from. They worry a lot about mixing populations and genetics. So he was unreleasable. That's how we ended up with him. Same with Oscar. Even though he's healed up really well from the boat strike, he's not releasable. It wouldn't be expected he would be very successful making it on his own.
Yeah. So it's an unfortunate reality for green sea turtles, sea turtles in general, I guess, that down. This was off the coast of Florida that he was found, right, by a couple of fishermen, and it's unfortunate that it is not uncommon for that to be the reason why green sea turtles end up in human care, or if they're not fortunate, they do get killed, unfortunately, by a lot of boat strikes. So that's something that I think when you're down on the coast, you're maybe more aware of that than you are here inland like we are. Tom, you mentioned that Shelby was going to talk next, and that's good because Shelby, I would like you to talk next. Okay. You are involved quite a bit in caring not just for Oscar, but for Oscar and Stewie. But you're not a herpetologist. I did not introduce you as a herpetologist. So, what's why are you so directly involved in caring very specifically for both of our green sea turtles? What is your background, and how has that played into your current work with him?
Yeah, I used to be a sea turtle rehabilitator. I was an intern at a sea turtle hospital for about a year, and then I got a job at a sea turtle hospital down in the Florida Keys, and I was there for about 3 years before I ended up here. So I had a lot of experience working with sea turtles, and that was the main animal, pretty much the only animal that I really had worked with before I started here was sea turtles.
Well, so how is Oscar to work with? I mean, you sometimes think of animals having personalities, and some maybe you don't assume that they have a personality, but I think it's pretty safe to say that for those of us who have been around Oscar and Stewie, they kind of have personalities. So how would you compare the two of them?
Oh, we always say that Stewie is more like a cat and Oscar is more like a dog.
Okay.
Stewie can be quite a diva, and he can be very picky, and you give him a piece of squash and he spits it out and runs away. Where Oscar will just swim up to you and just beg you for food constantly. So they definitely have their own personalities. And while Stewie has trained pretty well, Oscar has trained much better than Stewie. And Oscar will swim into a stretcher on his own, so that we can move him really easily and without stress on us and on him. And I don't know that Stewie could do that. He'll follow a target, but that's about it.
The Tennessee Aquarium's podcast Aquatic is made possible by support from the Tennessee Conservationist, the official magazine of Tennessee state parks. Each issue is filled with fascinating stories about Tennessee's native species, rich history, and unique culture. It's also your guide to exploring state parks and planning your next outdoor adventure. Subscribe today at tnconservationist.org.
So one thing that you may notice if you're watching this again in video form is hopefully you're getting some pretty clear views of what Oscar looks like when he's in the water and is swimming. So you may notice that he doesn't, Tom mentioned that Stewie, our sea turtle who is on exhibit in the Secret Reef, is the picture of health. Oscar very clearly is not. He looks different. Can you talk about how his injuries have affected his ability to maneuver and move through the water? Because you're seeing him swim in a way that probably looks a little bit odd if you've never seen it before.
Yeah, like you said, so Stewie, he can dive to the bottom of the Secret Reef. He can sit on the bottom and get under rocks and itch and come up to the surface with no problems. But Oscar, with his injury, it's very common for boat strike sea turtles to float. We call that positive buoyancy disorder or bubble butt syndrome.
Yes.
Bubble butt syndrome came first, named after a sea turtle actually at the hospital I used to work at. So he has a hard time diving, and as you can imagine, being in a very large, very deep pool, not being able to dive, you're kind of like a buoy and you just pop right back up. So he's not able to maneuver and get down the way that we would like him to be able to.
And I think for a lot of people, I'm about to answer the question I was about to ask, which is I think that for a lot of people, there was quite a bit of inspiration to seeing Oscar when he was on exhibit. When he lived at the aquarium, you could see people reacting to the fact that he did look different and that he moved through the water with what looked like remarkable fluency for someone or for an animal that had the injuries that he had. We continue to get questions about Oscar, which is why we're out here today to give people an update, because even though they haven't seen him in years, people want to know, how is he doing? Where is he? Is he okay? So then, Tom, I guess if there is a question in that, it's that, am I right in thinking that he was a source of inspiration to people, that people responded to the fact that he did look different? And more broadly than that, can you talk about how this ties into the philosophy of just because an animal looks different doesn't mean that it's not worth giving the same quality of care and ensuring its well-being just like every other, quote, normal animal?
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal with everything we do is to maximize the welfare of the animals that we care for. And it doesn't matter if that animal's got a damaged spine, like one of our Arapaima, or, God forbid, comes to us like Oscar did. If we can provide a good home for that animal, and especially allow that animal to be an ambassador to share with our guests, so maybe they can feel the importance to do what they can do for this planet, for our home, then why wouldn't we take that animal? In the case of Oscar, until I think he became more of a male, came into season, he and Stewie got along fine, but they began really battling, and we were struggling with a fungal problem with Oscar and some shoulder problems, and so getting them apart was paramount. Now that he's actually quite healthy in spite of his condition, I don't think mixing the two is the smart move. So we've tossed around ideas of, do we flip-flop them? Why don't we rehome the big, beautiful, healthy one? Well, if something were to happen to Oscar, then we don't have a sea turtle. They're hard to get. Well, why don't you rehome Oscar? Well, most people don't want a sea turtle like Oscar because they're not perfect. So we're working on a strategy to be able to maintain the efforts with Oscar to help his health, and we want to find a way to get him back in front of our guests. He was so popular. We had a plushie we used to sell in the gift shop.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I have one in my office. I have 2 stuffed animals. I have Miguel, our electric eel.
I have him.
Miguel Watson, and I have Oscar on my shelf. And when an animal can impact someone and cause them to feel something, that's when you can see a behavior change. And the truth of the matter is, whether we're talking about Oscar or Miguel Watson, the Laurel dace, a lake sturgeon, or anything else, everything we do impacts our water and all the life and animals around us. So if I can take an animal like Oscar and grab someone's heart and make them realize they need to make a difference, why wouldn't I do that? And at the same time, provide a great home for Oscar.
I think among guests, particularly that had their own issues with maybe dealing with mobility challenges, things like that, there was, I think, I'd have to go back and look, but I feel like we got some stories or heard in the galleries people talking about very specifically they saw some of their own experience reflected in his experience, and if he can surmount it, they can too. So there was, he was really just such an inspiration. It's really not that surprising to me that 5 years in, he's been away for so long, but people still, there's a place there's an Oscar-sized hole in their hearts to this day because of the inspiration that he represented to them. So Adam, I mean, you're with Oscar probably at this point more than anyone else, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I probably see him the most on the regular basis.
So what does a day look like out here in terms of your interactions with him?
So since he's a long-term resident, enrichment for him is really a priority for us. He's got some fish in the tank with him, some Bermuda chubs that were born in our Secret Reef exhibit. So that gives him something to look at and interact with. But it's not like he's on a full exhibit like the Secret Reef where there's a lot of areas to explore and things like that. So we try to come up with fun enrichment items for him. So that's probably our biggest priority on his daily care. So we've got a lot of different feeding options that we can do for him. But he eats every day. He eats about a pound of vegetables every day. So that's probably his favorite part of the day, if I had to guess.
Does he have a favorite kind of vegetable?
Oh, red bell pepper is probably number one.
Also Stewie's favorite.
I was about to say, are you surprised to hear that?
No, I am not.
Is Stewie's favorite vegetable also bell peppers, or is it he just happens to like the red ones of the bell peppers that you offer him?
He likes all of the bell peppers, but the red he gets way more excited for.
So you're out with him, like in terms of time that you're actually interacting with him, how much time would you say you're actually like engaging with him directly?
Oh, I don't know. Probably depends on the day, but we do intentionally try to spend time with him every morning, which is more like tactile, like shell scratching, like just giving him kind of like saying hi in the morning, that kind of interaction. And then we'll do a longer feeding session with him. So just kind of depending on if we're stretcher training or scattering the food or intentionally sinking it so he has to dive for it. Probably like an hour of interaction a day,
okay,
I would say.
So Shelby, now that he's been out here for a few years, and Tom mentioned that he's really kind of come into his own, how would you describe the arc of his maybe health or his robustness from arriving at the ACF and being able to be the only sea turtle instead of having to compete with Stewie? How has that impacted him physiologically?
He is so much better. I was not here at least when he had hurt his shoulder. I think actually when I came for my interview, he was in this pool and he really had just the fungal issues for the most part back then. So seeing him go from that in the last 5 years to what he looks like now has been absolutely amazing. The fungus is a continual problem for us and probably will be forever, but it's been managed so well, and a lot of that has to do with Adam. Spending so much time with him and making sure that he's strong and cleaning his shell off and all of that stuff. And you can even feel when Oscar is out of the water, his shoulder that used to be hurt, the muscle has taken over for that joint at this point, and so he's like really buff on one side. So it's actually really funny and really cool.
He, so you mentioned bringing him out of the water. He actually comes out of the water at least a couple of times a year, and part of the reason for that is because what you're seeing right now is only a seasonal home for him. So he has an outdoor system, and I know that you had a pretty important role in making sure that that came to be. So can you talk about what that outdoor system, why that exists out there, what that does for him physiologically, mentally, if there's a mental component to it? Like, how is it benefiting Oscar to be able to spend some time al fresco for a few months while it's warm?
Yeah. So obviously sea turtles normally live out in the ocean, and they get a lot of sunshine, and they can choose to come up to the surface and bask, or they can choose to dive down and get away from the sun. And physiologically, one of the ways that it really helps them is it helps them use calcium more effectively. So just in general, the vitamin D part of that really helps use the calcium and helps strengthen the bones and all of that. And so it's super important for that, but also the fungus tends to not like to be in the sun. It does not love the direct UV rays. So that really helps keep the load of fungus down. And then he also just gets a nice turtle tan while he's out there. I like to call it he's getting his turtle tan on when he's out there. If you look at his color now and you look at him in fall when we go to put him back, he looks completely different.
So, and we try and make sure that he can spend as much time outside as possible for all the reasons you just mentioned, right? So how long is he usually, when does he usually go out and when does he come back?
So far, this is our third year of doing it. So in general, we've gotten him out like the first or second week in June, just kind of depending on our overnight lows, since he can't be exposed to cold overnight temperatures. And then he usually comes back in like mid-October when we start to get into the like hitting the 50s again at night. Okay.
Well, and we're recording this for just to remove the veil of, I guess, not secrecy, but I mean, you're not the one behind the camera or behind the mic, I guess, but we're recording this in at the very beginning of July when he would normally be outside. He's inside because of an issue with the system, the outdoor system, correct?
Yeah, so we just needed to do some chiller repairs on his outdoor system. Since it's gotten so hot, the tank was having issues maintaining the temperature that we like to see him at. So we brought him in while we're repairing the chiller.
Well, and all of us here, all of the humans here behind this table, I think we're a little bit relieved when you sent an email letting us know that was the case, because at the moment there's a heat dome over much of the eastern U.S. and it's about 98 degrees outside, but it feels like 108, 110. Yeah. So I'm personally very gratified that whatever failed, because I don't think any of us really wanted to sit outside right now.
No.
Yeah. The other thing that happened was his the chiller went down, and then like 2 days later we had a really big storm, and it just tore his whole shade cloth off. So he no longer had a shade cloth either, and like it's right now it's like a 50% UV shade cloth, because as we all know, like we would burn if we just sat out in the sun with no cover,
Sure.
no clothes, no nothing.
Yeah, me especially.
Yeah, and me. So also having that shade cloth, we not having that, we couldn't have him out there either.
Yeah.
So.
Tom, I'd like to get your input on this in terms of what us investing the kind of money that was invested. I guess it wasn't really us. It was through a very generous donation. But what that says about us, that we did not just provide this system that he's in most of the year, but we are actually taking these extra steps to amplify that care that he's receiving and really go as far as we possibly can to ensure that his well-being. So can you talk a little bit about what that says and the philosophy behind why we wanted to do that?
Yeah, that's why I've been here so long, Casey. My goal was 3 or 5 years and move on to the next opportunity. And it was the first place in this field I had ever been where they really did everything they could to put animal welfare first. And so I think just that concept of if the animal needs it, they're going to get it. We're always going to do our best to give the animals what they need. So when Shelby and Dr. Keller recommended moving this animal outside, whatever we've got to do, that animal has come to us. It's our responsibility to do the very best we can for it. And we had the water outage a few years ago, and we spent a fair amount of money tweaking our infrastructure. God forbid we run out of water again in downtown Chattanooga. We can operate our buildings off freshwater reservoirs to keep our chillers going, because that was the right thing to do for the animals. So that's the philosophy behind it and the belief behind it. And it's hard to walk away for me from a place like that really seemed to care.
Sure.
That volunteer, someone who's been a long time volunteer, was generous enough to donate the money so that we could build that enclosure for Oscar.
That must have been really gratifying to you, because you can see an idea and understand how it would benefit an animal physiologically, but there's a dollars and cents component to it that can get in the way of realizing that. So how did it feel to know that you made this suggestion, knowing that there were a lot of benefits for Oscar, and then having the word come back that not just that's a great idea, but let's do it, let's make it happen?
Yeah, it felt really great. It was really nice, but really it just shows how much Oscar means to people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And people that have volunteered here for a long time and have seen him through his whole journey with us. And he meant enough to them that they wanted to do that just for him.
Yeah. I bet that volunteer has one of the special Oscar stuffies that you mentioned earlier.
I'm sure.
I expect she does.
I'd be willing to
They
bet.
deserve
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Adam, one thing that came up during the pandemic, when Oscar was out here, and I think we were shuttered for 96 days. I think were you out here at that point? Were you working here?
I was kind of doing, like I was saying Brenda does earlier, I was doing my split time at that point. But yes, I was out here a lot.
Yeah, because your predecessor at Nikki would have been, I guess, your current role.
Yep.
And we kept getting reports from the ACF about how Oscar was doing. He had just moved out. We were curious, just like everybody else, about how he was doing. And we heard tale that he wasn't. You mentioned enrichment. One thing you didn't mention was that he was watching a lot of TV. So can you explain what that means and why that was happening?
Yeah. So I think during COVID there was that, not to use epidemic, talking about COVID in a different sense, but there was that whole thing going around, a trend, I guess, of other aquariums where animals were not thriving because of the lack of interaction with people. And Oscar, since he's so like topside all the time, has a lot of interaction with people, hears voices, responds to people coming up to his exhibit and stuff.
He hasn't really left the edge of the
Yeah.
system where we are.
Yeah, he's very social, very used to people. So we kind of felt like that would be a good way to at least give him like sounds and potentially like people to look at. And just something different, like something glowing in your window to come and look at. So yeah, he watched TV for a little while.
And what you probably can't see about this system is there are actually acrylic windows that were kind of lower down, and I think that's where you kind of aimed the TV in that direction. Is that right?
Yeah, we have a little like TV tray now, basically, and set up the little TV right in front of his window.
So you still do it?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, now I heard tale that he was a big fan of a very particular show. So what show was that he was an especially big fan of?
Okay, so he's a sea turtle, so I can't say that he liked this show, technically.
We're anthropomorphizing
yes,
here.
but I can say that he would spend a lot of time at the window if Golden Girls was on the TV.
Right.
I can say that.
We all love Betty White.
Of course.
Even,
I mean, he's got taste.
Even Oscar.
And his favorite movie, or was it Nikki's favorite movie, Airplane?
Oh, he did like Airplane. He liked Elf a lot, too.
Yes.
Christmas time was big
Who
for him.
doesn't?
Yeah.
Aw, buddy. So what is his current, what would you say is his favorite enrichment now, since you're the one who's kind of dealing with that on a day-to-day basis? What does he respond the best to?
That's a good question. I think he actually doesn't mind stretcher training now. He'll swim into the stretcher and like hang out, and he knows he'll get a lot of scratches and like probably the best treats for that, because that's the behavior that we like to see him do voluntarily. But we've also been giving him like more enrichment that's kind of designed to float mid-water column, so he has to like knock food out of it, and he seems to really like that, and it gets him swimming and a lot more active.
I always love to hear about the clever enrichment ideas of the animal care specialist here, because they're things I would never think about, and they just seem like fun things for the animals to do, but there really is a big benefit to them doing it that I don't think I would, as someone who is a non-expert, that I would even recognize as being beneficial, at least not in the ways that clearly you all do.
Yeah, it definitely helps having a team, especially like forestry connections that are constantly enriching lemurs and otters and things that are traditionally like very cognitive and like need a lot of enrichment. So I get to rely on them for a lot of help, so they help me come up with fun ideas. But yeah, it's just, especially with such a food-motivated animal, like in the wild, they'd be constantly seeking food and interacting with different food items. So I think it's really important to simulate that, to give them at least some mental stimulation that it's not just, oh, we're feeding you a tank side every day in the same way and you're getting the same food every day.
Yeah.
Mix it up a little.
And training is enrichment as well. Training counts as enrichment.
Sure. Podcasting counts as enrichment too, I think. I mean, he's clearly...
I think so. He's very into this.
Yeah. Well,
I feel enriched.
Well, you know what? Me too, Tom. Every time that we get a chance to talk, I feel like I leave it richer than I was when I started. And actually, I think we can probably go ahead and start to wrap this up. I would normally go very long. Sometimes we go an hour or more, but I really just wanted this to be a focus on Oscar and his story, and give people the update they so very clearly want to know about what he's up to. So I'm glad that we got a chance to give an update, and that the three of you could make time on this murderously hot day to come over here to the ACF, our animal care facility, to talk about it. So thank you, Adam Johnson, to Shelby Ferguson, and to Tom Demas for joining us yet again. You're all veterans of the show, but I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to talk about this.
Of course.
Happy to be here. We love
thanks for
Oscar.
having us.
We do. We love Oscar.
All right, well, I'll end with my normal spiel that if you have an idea for a future episode of the podcast, send that to me by email at podcast@tnaqua.org. If you have a question for an expert like Adam, Shelby, or Tom, or any of our other experts at the Tennessee Aquarium, send that to me at the same address, podcast@tnaqua.org. While you're online, leaving a rating for us or writing a review if you got a little bit more time. Those are both really great ways to support the show that don't cost you a thing. And in the meantime, until next time, remember that every drop matters.